From the studios of WFAN, this is Mike Zahn, Francesa on the Fan on this 20th day of June. Into summer we go. Obviously, after a big sports weekend, a lot to talk about, a lot to get to. Plenty of baseball stuff, including the Mets, who are in a bit of a crisis mode right now. We'll get to that. Obviously, a U.S. Open where the USGA just stubbed its foot and stubbed its toe just incredibly. But Dustin Johnson went on to a win and a well-earned one. And then, of course, last night, and winners abound. The city of Cleveland, which has its first championship. LeBron James, who obviously quieted even his dumbest or most severe critic, no matter who that may be, and the NBA, which last night presided over the highest-rated game in the history of the league. So, I mean, you had perfect setting. You had the golf lead-in. If you're a golf fan, maybe you're not. It doesn't matter. You had 8 o'clock on a Sunday night with nothing else on, Father's Day night, and you had a Game 7 that was close the entire way and right to the finish. So it gave you, listen, if you're a league, you're going to do a big rating in that game. And obviously you had the winningest team in the history of the sport, trying not to lose 3 straight games and become the first team. Imagine that. Take all the other stuff out. Take Cleveland out in the 52 years. Take LeBron James out and all that stuff out. Take all that out and just have a team that has won 73 games that came from 3-1 down the last series to preserve its chance for a championship and then was fighting off losing a 3-1 lead in the next series. A team that won 73 games, that won its first 24 games to start the season, was trying not to lose its last 3 games to lose the championship. And that's exactly what it did, lose its last 3 games, 2 on its own court. Lost as many games in the postseason as it lost in the regular season, which is almost mind-boggling. And lost its last 3 games, 2 at home, where it had been, totally unbeatable all year. So there are so many different things to this. The first being, there has been, since the day he arrived in Cleveland, from the time he went for his 4 years in Miami to the time he went back to Cleveland, there has been enormous pressure on this player to deliver a championship to that city that has been so starved. And now that's been accomplished, and it was accomplished in the wildest way after being down 2-0 and really ran out of the building and being, attacked across the country from pillar to post to coming back with 3 straight games at the end that will be remembered forever. I mean, his last 3 games, games 5, 6, and 7, he averaged 36 points, 13 rebounds, and 11 assists, which is, hard to even fathom. I mean, that someone could do that. So that was the last 3 games. And he was obviously the unanimous MVP. Irving established himself as a star and a rising star with his performance in this series, including the big 3 at the end. And you know what it was last night, folks? It was an old-time NBA game for the first time in a long time, where that was an old-time NBA game where the defense is dominating the game. And scoring is hard. That's how NBA games always were. That's how they used to be. And now you saw some of that last night, and that's the rarest of things. We haven't seen that in a long time. They let some stuff go. They let there be some physicality, and you had these teams playing defense. You had Golden State playing defense against a Cleveland team that can have a tough time offensively, and you had Cleveland playing terrific defense against a Golden State team that is very difficult to defend. And really, we could go over a clinic on how to play the pick and roll, because that became the essence of this whole series. Whether you were going to switch the pick and roll if you're Golden State, whether you were going to switch the pick and roll if you're Cleveland, how you defend when you do switch it, how you defend when you don't switch it. So that is really the essence of it, and creating soft switches and soft matchups that allowed both LeBron and Irving to attack, and on the other side, allowed guys open like Green, who had a huge first half, who they did a very good job against in the second half on a night where a lot of his mates did not stand up and play very, very well. Look at it first from the Golden State standpoint. This is a very tough loss, because if you were going to dominate, and you can compare this to what the Patriots did. You can, but it's a little different when you don't lose one game. See, anybody can lose one game. So you can get beat in one game. They got beat in 3 straight games and 2 at home. So it's a little different when you see a championship, when you win 73 games and see a championship dissipate where you don't have to lose once, you have to lose 3 straight times. And you do. Than if you just get beat once like the Pats did against the Giants. That can happen. We know in one-game formats, the best team doesn't always win. It's part of the appeal of one-game formats. That's not supposed to happen in 7-game series and in the history of the NBA. And right now, if you go through the Big 4 sports, the team that has the regular season record does not have a title attached to that season. In the NBA, you had always had that. Whether it was the 76ers, whether it was the Lakers, whether it was the Bulls, every one of the teams that had upped the win total won a championship, and usually in easy fashion. Well, it was anything but easy for Golden State in the finals this year. It was anything but easy for them in the finals last year. And they now will have a very long offseason to wonder what happened, but they know what happened. They ran into a great player who was at the top of his game, and I don't know that you'll ever see that again at that level. You know, LeBron James did some things in the series that have never been done before. That plays into the versatility of his talents and the uniqueness of his talents to lead every category in a series which has never been done before and may never be done again. But I wonder now that he has delivered this championship and as he starts to progress in years, and if you look at pictures of him 10 years ago and now, he's aged dramatically. You wonder how many more years there are that he can actually go out there, play 46 to 48 minutes in these games, and give you the effort at both ends of the floor. Probably not many, if at all. We may never see this again at the same level. Maybe not. What we saw here in games 5, 6, and 7, we may never see again from him. He could be a very different player in the years to come. He will be, but I don't know if he has a year left at the top or 2 or none. Who knows? We'll see. But this is one where the scheduling helped him. Having that extra game on the travel days, 5, 6, and 7, helped him dramatically. Because if there was 2 days, because I thought last night versus games 5 and 6, he was tired in the second half. He had no lift on his jump shot, which I think, all you need is to be off a little bit. But I also think you give Golden State credit. The defense was better, and I think both ends of the floor, the defense was better. And they made enough plays. And there were a couple of times in the second half where Cleveland had to fight it off. They, when they got hit with the run that tied the game at 71 and called timeout, and I thought Lou used his timeouts very, very efficiently, which we talked about on Friday were going to be a key. How you stop the runs. Made sure you stopped the runs. He did a very good job last night of stopping the runs every single time he needed to stop one. And there was the one where off the dunk at 71 up. And then there were the pivotal different spots in the game where plays had to happen. And you can count those. And in the fourth quarter, where it obviously became a battle of wills and of really staunch physical defense, the way both teams had trouble scoring. There were a couple of critical junctures, but the first was at 87-83. At 87-83, Cleveland, just a tick above 5 minutes left, Cleveland came down, and I'm saying if this gets to 3 scores, if this gets to 6 or plus, 6, I even thought 6 versus even more than 6. I thought 6 would be too much. And it's at 4, and they're coming down the court, and I said, they have to score this trip. And that was the trip where they switched the pick. They got Ezeli on to LeBron. LeBron faked him into the 3 foul shots, went to the line, made the 3 foul shots, which he had to make. Now it's 87-86. They get a stop, and then LeBron hits a 3, which the way he was shooting last night, I didn't know he had a 3 in him. And now Cleveland, which just moments ago trailed 87-83, now leads 89-87. I thought that was absolutely critical. And then obviously the sequence that you'll see forever, the block on Iguodala, which was just amazing. And then the 3 by Irving, who had a very, very meaningful second half. He had, after his explosion of 41, he had been a little spotty the last couple of games, but he had a big third quarter. And then obviously outplaying Curry, which wasn't that hard in this series, but made the big basket that gave them the lead, what they were able to hang on to. And then the dunk play, which Green went up and rightly so, stopped him from making the dunk. And I actually thought, folks, the way he came down, I would have subbed him out of the game and put in and I was saying it at the time, because there's only 10 seconds left. You have a foul to give. You have to get this to +4 or 5. You have to get this to 2 possessions. If you do, you're going to win the game. I would have, if his hand was bothering him, and I don't know to what extent it was, but even if there was a thought it was, I would have subbed him out of the game, sat him down, and of course it was that important that they made those 2 free throws. He missed the first and just rattled the second one in, which really changed the way you were going to play that last 10 seconds, and Golden State didn't play it well, which was kind of emblematic of everything they did, and Cleveland had its victory. So that's the celebration we're watching now as they get off the plane in Cleveland. I don't know why they had to stop in Vegas on the way home last night, but that's their owner's business. But the bottom line is Cleveland's going to have a party after 52 years, and now everyone can look to see who needs now to win a championship, because Cleveland no longer needs to win a championship. They have their championship. And, you know, I've told you many times that LeBron didn't need to be elevated, in my mind, to any status. He was already in that first 5 that a lot of people put him in last night. Well, it's the 5 we've talked about in the past that seems to be. But if you think of the game, I think he was there anyway. And those who were critical would even have to put him there after this performance. You know, he could have been given the MVP last year in a losing cause. That's neither here nor there. This year it was an unanimous selection after his performance, which will be remembered forever, because the versatility of it, the intensity of it at both ends of the floor, no guy ever gave more to one effort, possession by possession, than what he was counted on, just showing that he led the team, both teams, in every statistic, which had never been done before by any player, whether it was a 4, 5, 6, or 7-game series. It had never been done by a player in history. And his last 3 games facing elimination, 36 points, 13 rebounds, 11 assists. Scary performance. Irving, a very, very good series for him, a real coming out party for him to build on for the future. And I thought Love, with all the abuse he has taken, gave you really gutty performance last night. You know, it was interesting. Over the weekend, I was talking to some guys, who were at the series and people involved, and I said, how do you play this? You know, if you come out like LeBron came out in 5 and 6 and just dominate offensively, in the second half, if they take that away, if they get the ball out of your hands, which they can do, can you count on any one of your guys to do anything then, when they haven't been asked to do anything in the game? Or do you make sure you get your guys involved early so that you can believe in them and trust in them at some point in that game? And that was what he consciously tried to do, maybe even to a fault last night, too early, trying to make sure guys got shots, trying to get J.R. Smith into the game, or Love into the game, or Thompson into the game, forcing passes maybe versus taking shots. And they all contributed in their way. Shumpert, had one big basket. Smith gave you some baskets. He did some okay things. He even had one in the fourth quarter. Love gave you what he could give you. He gave you some rebounding. He gave you some defense, especially on one, obviously, possession that everyone will see against Curry. But Love gave you whatever he had. He gave you his toughness. There was one play where he missed a chippy, went back up, missed the chippy, and then went back up and got the ball a third time and put it in. That was the tenacity that Love gave you last night. At least he gave you that. It wasn't pretty, but he gave you that. And they got enough out of the supporting cast last night and enough out of the second player in Irving and played plenty of defense to get themselves a win over a team that had a lot of weapons and only had one of them really on high efficiency last night. That obviously Green, who was left wide open way too many times in the first half, shut down much better in the second half, but still had a terrific game and is a terrific young player. Barnes had a nightmare, as we know. And he's the guy who may come out of this being the GOAT, although there's enough to go around for a lot of their players who just didn't live up to what they had hoped in this series. But you know what? That's for another day. Right now, it's about the winners, not the losers. It's about what Cleveland accomplished, what Lou accomplished, what LeBron accomplished, and where the NBA goes from here after a big, big night. Great ratings, a dramatic seventh game, and a championship for a city that has obviously longed and thirsted and quested and dreamed and begged for a title for so many years. And now they're going to have a couple-day party in Cleveland. 52 years in the making. We'll come back and talk about all this. We'll get to all the golf, all the baseball, everything else. Here's the McMahon.